Welcome to Employment First and Employment Services Training. This is presented by the Texas Health and Human Services Commission under the IDD and Behavioral Health Services Special Project Unit. As you know, employment in our communities and the independence which work gives all of us is something that many of us may take for granted in life. But for many of the individuals we serve, and I will use the word we a lot, this is a collective thing, whether you sit in HHS somewhere or sit with ACOG or some private provider somewhere, this is a we game. So for many of the individuals we all serve, acquiring employment in the community can be very challenging. Service providers play a critical role in supporting individuals and helping them find independence and success when that individual sets competitive and integrated employment as a goal. Now, anybody who has some role in supporting an individual through the employment process, no matter how minimal you think that role is, you're going to find this training valuable today. There's going to be a piece of it that applies to you. Maybe not every single piece, but your knowledge of the big game is going to help you to be better equipped to serve individuals as they set the goal for employment. This means service coordinators, employment specialists, job coaches, direct service workers, and social workers are only a few examples of staff who may have a role in supporting the process once an individual sets employment as a goal. Today's training will provide you with a variety of tools centered around supporting the individuals we all serve. In this first session, we will provide an overview of Employment First and touch on HCBS rules on the horizon, the rule changes. So let's start off with this. What exactly is Employment First? Well, in this context, it is very straightforward. Simply put, Employment First is a philosophy that employment in the general workforce should be the first and preferred option for individuals with disabilities receiving assistance from a publicly funded system. Basically, this means earning a competitive wage for a given job in a regular setting, just like anyone else in the workforce. Now, this is actually quite a different approach than what has been offered in the past. There are great examples all across our state of some provider organizations who have adopted this philosophy and realigned how the service array is presented. But there is much work to be done to bring Texas to the forefront as a true employment first state in practice. It's important that a service provider offer employment services as the first option presented at an initial intake and each subsequent planning meeting with all stakeholders. While an individual may not want to pursue employment at an initial intake, it's our duty to offer again at each planning meeting, as an individual may want to pursue employment in the future. Now, just a few of the many examples of opportunities of working in the community in an integrated setting could be such as working at a local hotel as a clerk, working at a rental car agency servicing vehicles, working in the records department at a hospital, and yes, there are real examples of that, working at the city library, maybe even working at a home improvement retailer, or maybe working at a distribution center in a large warehouse setting. Again, this is only a few of the many, many examples of settings where individuals are working who have disabilities. All across the state, we repetitively hear about and see businesses that are short-staffed and have numerous vacancies. In most communities, employers experience high turnover, especially in entry-level positions. And there can be many opportunities for an individual to be the solution for those situations where they can help reduce turnover. I want to touch on something here. If we were talking to you 2.5 years ago, we had record low unemployment. Record low unemployment. Businesses were struggling to find people to work, and we had a unique opportunity, especially for entry-level positions, to help educate businesses on why it would be a good decision to hire people we serve. Well, let's roll the clock forward to today. What do we see and when we go to businesses all over our communities, and what do we hear? Well, the unemployment rate is higher, but businesses are struggling more than ever to find employees. How many places have you gone to that have a sign up that says, please be patient with us, we're short-staffed? Well, here again, in such a unique environment, it is an excellent opportunity, and a door is open for the individuals we serve to be a solution to job vacancies for many, many employers across the state. Now, as you transform your organizations to bring the subject of employment to the forefront as an option, you will be creating expanded life opportunities as well as paving the way for greater independence opportunities for those you serve. Employment in the general workforce means regular jobs like everyone else and being part of the economic mainstream of our society. This means not only being in the community, but providing an opportunity for individuals we serve to be part of their community. Work is a huge component for all of us to be part of our communities and to be involved. Being part of the general workforce also provides opportunities for individuals to be part of a team, an opportunity for them to network with others, and launch into other general community activities that we all desire, such as they can become members of civic organizations and members of social and civic groups in the community. Now, to accomplish this, the individual sets competitive and integrated employment as a goal with assistance from the long-term services and supports program provider. Assistance from the provider is critical as an individual embarks on setting employment as a goal. It's important to note that employment is not required for any individual receiving long-term services and supports. Employment is, though, a goal that the individual may set as they desire to seek greater independence in life. Simply put, no one who receives services is mandated to go to work. It's a choice that, if truly supported, can be a life-changing option among the services you provide. The first important step is for the service provider to make certain that individuals are even aware that employment services are available. Many times, the individual or their family may not realize this is a service option. This again goes back to the employment first philosophy, in that employment services should be the first and preferred option offered. If employment services are not placed at the forefront during an intake or annual planning meeting, individuals and stakeholders will not be properly informed of this important service option. In reality, a service provider's contract actually requires that they must offer the service either directly or indirectly through third-party providers who deliver employment services. If an individual sets employment as a goal, and of course, employment services have a specific hourly compensation schedule. Now, if you do not have employment services staff directly employed, that is not a valid excuse for not offering the service option. Let's assume an individual makes it known that they want to set employment as a goal. So maybe your organization doesn't presently have employment specialists or job coaches on staff. Well, maybe your organization is simply too small to have those staff employed. The absence of those specialized staff would mean that you would want to pursue other entities in your area who can provide the services, and you could reach an agreement with that entity. This could be a private service provider who does have the staff, or it could even mean partnering with the local intellectual and developmental disability authority who may have the staff. And then again, as I said, pursue an agreement with them. So, what exactly is so different about Employment First in comparison to what we've done in the past? In the past, when it came to publicly funded services, individuals have historically been offered services such as day habilitations, where they may have been provided transportation to a given location outside of their home. Here, they may have engaged in activities during the day with other individuals receiving services. Or they may have had the opportunity to participate in work centers, also known as sheltered workshops, but typically those are set up where the individual would earn sub-minimum wage. Support for competitive and integrated employment services historically may have been a lesser known service among the many different services that have been offered. The Employment First philosophy is a complete switch, with the focus of employment services being the first service option offered. This means aiding individuals served to help them in finding a job in the community, and becoming a tax-paying citizen is the first and preferred choice. The ability to work in the community and earn wages is a tremendous catalyst towards greater independence for anyone in society, and this includes the individuals we serve. This allows an individual to have greater choices in life and can be a stepping stone to living in a more independent setting. Employment First starts with the presumption that a person with a disability can work. As a matter of fact, if the necessary supports are in place, anyone with a disability can work. Now, this is difficult to embrace for many, that the notion that anyone can work. Does that mean it's always going to be easy? No, it can be very difficult. Depending on the level of supports needed, it can be extremely difficult for someone. Different individuals need different types of supports. As a team, it is our duty to identify what supports are needed to assist the individual as they pursue employment, and then provide the necessary and appropriate supports to assist them in being successful on the job. This could mean behavioral supports, supports to stay on task, or working with an employer for an appropriate setting and consideration of a physical disability, so that the individual has the greatest opportunity possible to be successful in the work setting. There are numerous examples across this state and even the nation of individuals who have secured employment and become successful in their job. But those individuals may have historically been regarded as unable to work due to multiple disabilities. When a team identifies the supports needed and collaborates to provide those supports, incredible things can happen for someone who may have previously been assumed to be unemployable. Additionally, far too many times, individuals with disabilities had to prove their readiness for employment. Under the philosophy of Employment First, we must embrace that individuals can work until proven otherwise. Individuals we serve should be viewed as everyone else in society that sets employment as a goal. The difference is that teams work together to identify the supports needed for each individual to create a recipe for success as the individual pursues work. When it comes to employment and someone's desire to work, we should focus on what abilities that person brings to the table, as opposed to focusing on the disability. Individuals we serve can be a tremendous asset to a business in the community. Individuals with a disability who set employment as a goal have a true desire to work and be a productive member of the organizations. In other words, they were not told they have to go to work. They choose to pursue employment, and thus It makes them an excellent employee once hired. And this is something we've heard over and over from many businesses. Why? Someone who sets employment as a goal, again, truly wants to work. Individuals served are typically very punctual and they do not desire to miss any work. As a matter of fact, a common theme that many employers state is that my only challenge with the employee is that he or she comes into work too early. Really now, how many employers would love to see employees simply show up to work on time, much less be at work early? It's also important for us to become familiar with this subject matter because it is a nationwide movement and centers around providing the greatest independence opportunities for everyone we serve. This means the greatest level of independence possible for each and every person based on their individual situation. Now, Texas became an officially became an employment first state in 2013 with the passage of Senate Bill 1226 under the 83rd Texas Legislature. From that legislation, HHSC, the Texas Education Agency, and what is now the Texas Workforce Commission all adopted the employment first philosophy and policy. You can view more information about the employment first policy from the web address we provided at the bottom of this slide. Now, it's also important to know about changes on the horizon at the federal level, which will further strengthen the employment first philosophy. And change is coming quick. In 2014, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services released the HCBS settings rule changes. Those rules were initially set to become effective on March 17, 2019, but they were initially extended to March of 2020. Subsequently, because of COVID, they were extended to 2022, and now they are set to become effective March 17, 2023. And states are taking initiatives to get approved rules in place that would complement the HCBS settings rule changes. So suffice to say, change is on the horizon in the way that long-term services and supports will be provided. The home and community-based services rule changes go hand in hand with the employment first philosophy. The changes focus on giving individuals who receive services the opportunity to seek competitive and integrated employment, also to be part of their community and be in control of personal resources, more in control of personal resources. The change also focuses on allowing individuals to receive the same access to services as those not receiving home and community-based services. It is obvious that the rule changes are focused on providing greater independence in life for those we serve. Competitive and integrated employment in the community is a tremendous catalyst to greater independence for those we serve. As professionals in the industry, it is all of our duty to embrace and support the employment first philosophy. The simple fact is, we cannot just talk the talk when it comes to employment first, but we must walk the talk and all make the change happen.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Shamir Clemens. I am the lead program specialist for special projects with Health and Human Services. And this morning we'll actually be discussing employment services in Texas. So this presentation is actually going to highlight employment initiatives in Texas. We're going to discuss how employment services are defined, as well as how they're accessed, and we'll conclude a brief overview of Social Security benefits, as well as work incentives. HHS has many employment initiatives that are underway. This is a partial list to give you just an idea of some of the variety of resources that are available. We have Employment First web-based pages. We have Employment Services web-based training. It is very helpful if you have time for staff to just kind of get an overview of how employment services look in Texas. We also have the Employment First benefits training for LIDAs as well as managed care organizations. And then we also have the Employment for People with Disabilities pamphlet that was created and the Employment Guide for People with Disabilities. The link is at the bottom of the slide, and it will take you to the HHS Employment First web pages that contain this information and much more, and it's very helpful. Success in employment services in Texas. A person with a disability in Texas is likely getting services from one of these waivers, the HCBS Medicaid waiver programs that are listed here. This list does include home community-based services, as well as Texas home living, community living assistance, and supported services known as CLAS. Also, DBMD, which is the deaf blind with multiple disabilities, and youth empowerment services, or the YES waiver. They're also through a managed care organization, which is called MCO. That's what we say for short, some of the acronyms, 1,000 acronyms that we have at the agency. So the managed care programs that provide employment services do include STAR Plus, HCBS, and STAR Kids for medically dependent children's program. Waiver programs and MCOs both provide long-term services and supports. They do include employment services as well. Management care is a health care organization or delivery system that is organized to help manage the cost, use, and the quality of the services. They do deliver health benefits and services through contracts, which are contracted through state Medicaid agencies. And in Texas, this is operated by Health and Human Services. So let's discuss competitive integrated employment a bit. Monty touched on employment services in Texas and just what Employment First is. So we're going to just discuss this a little bit. So with alignment with the Employment First policy, the overall goal for people going into the workforce is competitive integrated employment, and that is defined here. So if you can work in a shelter workshop setting, does not qualify as competitive integrated employment because it is in a segregated setting and does not pay minimum wage. So when you think of competitive integrated employment, it's going to be just like you and I as we go to work. It pays the minimum wage or above. It has the same opportunities for promotion as well as benefits and other things just as any other employee. It is not typically owned or run by an agency whose only sole purpose is for people with disabilities. Okay. So a person wants to work. And they want to have a CIE. So a person's attitude towards getting a job, it can change quickly and for various reasons, such as perhaps they have a friend or a housemate that starts working. They see that they have more money. They're excited about it. Hey, I want to do it too, right? So it's a good idea to ask a person if they want to work on a regular basis, not wait until the quarterly or annual review of the person's plan. Okay. And again, this can be discussed at any time, but again, it's always good to have the conversation because oftentimes we've seen that individuals, some people don't want to work. I mean, and that's just the fact. They don't want to work. And even with Employment First, it is the preferred option, but that does not mean that everyone works. Okay. So when you're setting an employment goal, once a person expresses their interest in competitive integrated employment, it must be documented in their plan and in the implementation plan. The waiver programs develop at different times, which is why each has its own planning document. It could be the IPP, the IPC, or the ISP. It just depends on what waiver they're in. However, once the goal has been added to the plan, the approved units of employment assistance should also be added to the service plan as well. So when working with family members, this is a challenge. One of the challenges and providers that the providers actually face is when someone they serve they want to go to work into the community. They are met with resistance by the family and family members, as well as the legal guardians at times. So we do encourage the providers to reach out to these concerned families and begin having conversations with them to acknowledge and address their fears and concerns with them going to work. In the next coming slides, we will offer some suggestions just to get the conversation started. So what are some of the things that they're worried about? Okay, let's explore that a little bit. So letting their loved ones venture out and possibly fail, as well as issues of safety, are some of the two big concerns. However, loss of waiver slots, that is a major issue and concern that families have, as well as the monthly cash benefit from the Social Security Administration. This is a large concern. And their Medicaid, which is their medical coverage, it tends to be another concern, especially if the person lives with the family and the monthly cash benefit is the only source of income that the family has. So these are all concerns that family have with individuals who want to go to work. So with starting some of these conversations with family members about their loved ones going back to work in the community, it can be a bit tricky. This slide here and the one that follows will offer some kind of conversation starters for providers to use when faced with the need to speak with family members. The dignity of risk is the idea that self-determination and the right to take responsibility for risk are essential for the dignity and self-esteem of the individual. Okay. Equal expectations of encouraging the family not to use the person's disability as an excuse for them to prevent them from going to work, but also addressing myths and different things that they've heard from, just the buzz of people going back to work, how it looks. Everyone's case is different. Every situation is different. So addressing some of those myths about the loss of Social Security benefits when going to work is another good conversation starter, okay? And we will talk about this a bit more later in the presentation. So do not believe everything you hear. Again, every situation is different. And here are some more suggestions for starting the conversations as well about employment with family members. Just acknowledge that everyone has successes and failures at work. Just because one job didn't work does not mean that the next one won't. And with that, if you think about it, a lot of us in our careers, we are not where we started. We've had to go through some trial and error, what works and what doesn't work for us. It's going to be the same thing, okay? Another approach is to say that we all have to work. So having a disability should not exclude people from that experience. Another approach is to mention that Social Security benefits are not necessarily a one-time service. A person can get back on or reapply, but working is always better. For example, individuals on supplemental security income who work always have more money. So start the conversation with family members, and just doing so will help kind of smooth the way for the person to achieve their employment goal. So you have to start the conversation and plant the seed. So here I'm actually going to show a video, and this will introduce 3 people with disabilities who are in the workforce and their families. This video will illustrate how going to work helps these folks achieve independence with support from their families.
Having a job means much more than a paycheck for persons with disabilities. It means greater satisfaction, self-confidence, and independence in their personal lives.
When people with disabilities are employed, it gives the community an opportunity to see the value of people.
Stephanie's employment is very meaningful to her and to us and to all of her peers. She's a teacher's aide. It's the preschool special ed classroom.
I help the kids. I enjoy the work. that I'm doing.
Stephanie's self-esteem has grown. I think Stephanie's independence has taken off and shot through the roof.
Confidence that it has given her is tremendous. And she was not outgoing at all until she became employed.
Jackie's job is very meaningful to her. She loves getting up every day and going to work.
I work at Vocational Assessment.
Her proudest times of the week is when she comes home and she just shares a little bit what she did at work and a little bit about her customers.
She's more independent, she's more confident, she takes more initiative, both on the job and at home.
Susie works here at the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities. She handles a lot of our research and editing.
I'm going to turn my life around, and I'm a lot happier.
When you look at an employee, you don't really worry about if they have a disability or don't have a disability. What you want is a driven employee that's going to do the job, and that's where we've benefited. She's driven. Susie went to UT and graduated before the ADA. That's a huge feat.
As a parent, we always want our kids to be successful, and oftentimes that means, taking chances. As long as you can see that progress, you know she's on the right path.
We've been extremely lucky. No negatives at all from her being employed. It's all positives.
We didn't lose any benefits. Nothing's changed.
Now more than ever before, persons with disabilities can have the support of their employer, the local intellectual and developmental disability authority, local governments, as well as family and friends.
Working will give your loved one the pathway to personal growth.
So there was the video. So as you see, employment can work. So with a person being employed and wanting to be find a job, there are service provider qualifications that are needed for an individual to kind of provide these employment services to the person. So to be eligible to provide employment services in Texas, which includes employment assistance and support employment, there are minimum qualifications as a service provider must meet. So the option one, as you see, they must require a bachelor's degree, as well as with rehab, business marketing, or a related human service field, along with 6 months of paid or unpaid experience providing services to people with disabilities. Okay. Option two, they must have an associate's degree in one of the same fields of study and 1 year of experience providing services. The option three allows for a high school diploma or GED and 2 years of experience providing services to people with disabilities. These requirements do apply to both waiver and MCO service providers. So the waiver and MCO. So now we're going to actually turn and discuss more about employment assistance. What is employment assistance? We define employment assistance a little bit different, okay? This is not a prescribed list that everyone must get, but rather a list of the services available through employment assistance. The service should be tailored to the needs of the person, and the goal of employment assistance is for the provider to help a person locate competitive integrated employment in the community. So employment assistance is to assist the individual to find employment, okay? Employment assistance does consist of conducting training on identified needs, such as locating prospective employment that are compatible with the person's interests, also negotiating a person's employment, and providing transportation to help the person find employment in the community and participate in the service planning team needs. These are all covered under employment assistance. MCOs are not required to provide transportation, but should assist in locating transportation for the person. It is also important to know that there are restrictions on how Medicaid funds can be spent. Funds cannot be used to pay an employer to hire a person or for providing services the employer typically makes available to other workers without disabilities. Medicaid funds also cannot be used to pay a person to get them to participate in employment assistance or for certain startup expenses related to a person's personally owned business. Okay. Can't do it, don't do it. So when you estimate the number of employment assistance units that are needed, it will vary depending on how much training a person will need and the availability of natural supports. The discovery process may include taking the person out to different businesses in the community and to see what jobs may be of interest to this person. Transporting the person to job interviews is also a part of the service as well. A good rule of thumb is to ask for enough units to cover a 6-month period, but also remember that a person will not be receiving employment assistance all day, every day, okay? So there is no limit on the number of hours as long as it is justified and does not exceed the annual dollar amount allowed by the waiver that the person is in. Let's discuss the referral to TWS VRS. Okay. TWS VRS is the Texas Workforce Solutions Voc Rehab Services and the school system as well. If the person is under the age of 22, the federal requirement related to payer of first and last resort. Once the person has made application with TWS VRS, HCBS waiver providers may begin providing and billing for employment assistance. The waiver provider can and should provide and continue to bill for employment assistance until the person's TWS VRS individualized plan for employment is signed, okay? Once the IPE is signed, TWS VRS becomes the payer of first resort and HCBS waiver employment assistance must stop, okay? A state cannot pay for the same service with two different sources of federal funding. As services with TWS VRS are concluding, the person may be referred back to the waiver or MCO provider for supported employment if needed. Okay. So we discussed employment assistance. Let's discuss supported employment. Okay. This service is only available to someone who already has a job. Employment assistance assists the person in looking and seeking a job. Okay. Now the person is employed, so you can start providing supported employment to support the person in their job, okay? The goal of support employment is to help a person who requires intensive ongoing support to be self-employed, work from home, or perform in competitive integrated work setting. So these are some of the services, and the services listed are not prescribed for every person, but should be provided as needed, okay? If the person has never worked before, he or she will need to learn the process of working, including showing up on time, signing in, when to take breaks and lunch, where the restroom is. In addition to this, the actual job task, because that is very important. The person may require a job coach to supervise job performance and oversee employment and adaptations and training. It is also important for the provider to maintain open communication with the person's employer to address any issues that may arise with providing or assisting with locating transportation for the person, as well as the efforts to work are part of the service for support employment as well as participating in service planning meetings, okay? And this concludes this section for employment services that are offered through Health and Human Services. And we're actually going to discuss and turn our attention to Social Security benefits and work incentives. So let's discuss Social Security benefits and work incentives. Okay. If a person is receiving supplemental security income, or SSI, or Social Security, which disability insurance, which is SSDI. I'm sorry, I skipped too fast. Going to work can impact their benefits, okay? It is very important to get some basic understanding of how going to work can affect a person's benefits. The next upcoming slide, I'm actually going to discuss a few numbers that are current for 2021. Please be advised that Social Security Administration updates these numbers each year. So the numbers that are shown are for 2021, and they will be updated anytime from February or March of 2022, okay? So let's discuss some of the basic terms. Here's some basic terms that will be helpful for you to know as we move forward. SSA refers to the Social Security Administration. Okay, this is the federal agency that oversees Social Security benefits programs. Okay, SSI is short for Supplemental Security Income. Title II refers to Social Security Disability Insurance, or known as SSDI, as well as the Childhood Disability Beneficiary and Disabled Widow or Widower, okay, or DWED. That's what we say for short term. So what is Supplemental Security Income, okay, or SSI? This is also known as Title 16. This program is for people who have a disability or are over the age of 65 and who need help paying for food and shelter. There are a lot of myths about what happens to a person, SSI's monthly cash benefit, and Medicaid when they go to work. So it is important for you to know that a person can work a very long time before the SSI cash benefit and Medicaid ends. And we're going to discuss that just a little bit later. Okay. So the SSI monthly cash benefit, let's hear some of the numbers, okay? The SSI cash benefit is paid at the beginning of the month. The monthly cash benefit for an individual person in 2021 is $794 a month and $1,191 for a married couple. There is no more. A couple cannot receive any more than $1,191. An individual cannot receive any more than $794, okay? Exceeding the established resource limits, there is a $2,000 resource limit for an individual, $3,000 for a couple. If you exceed this limit, it will impact the monthly cash benefit. If you qualify for SSI in Texas, you automatically get Medicaid, okay? So you receive SSI, you receive Medicaid. And you do not have to apply for Medicaid separately. It comes with SSI. So I'm going to discuss the resource limits just a little bit more. So say, for instance, with the resource limits, a one home and one vehicle does not count. If you own 2 cars and you own a boat, they look at these items as assets. So they are considered resources, which will affect your resource limit. If you go over even $1, the Social Security looks at it and they're like, hey, you have these resources. And again, with SSI, it's need-based. It's very basic needs. It's a need-based program. So they're looking at it as, if you have these assets, you don't need to be on this program. You don't need these additional resources, okay? So you want to be really cautious with families and individuals who do return to work, because you want to make sure they stay under the resource limit, or they can lose their benefits. They can lose their medical service, and then it becomes a huge mess of contacting the administration and trying to get back on and making sure they get their their Medicaid services back. So you want to just keep an eye and be aware of the resource limits, okay? So let's discuss when a person goes to work. So the SSI monthly cash benefit, it is figured using a formula that SSA comes up with. And as earned income goes up, the monthly cash benefit starts to go down. And it will eventually go to 0 a month if the person earns beyond a certain limit or amount. However, there are certain work incentives that may allow a person to keep the Medicaid and remain an active SSI recipient. A person always has more money when he or she works and is on SSI, okay? So when does the cash benefit stop? So as an earned income increases, the monthly cash benefit begins to decrease. When a person's earned income causes the monthly cash benefit to go to 0 a month, they have reached the breakdown point. People worry about the monthly cash benefit going to 0, but we're going to just take a little look and we're going to look at the numbers, okay? So for someone receiving the full $794 cash benefit, remember, you can't receive any more than that. That's the max for 2021. That's it, okay? So a person receives the full $794 cash benefit. They have no other deductions. The break-even point is $1,673. So a person can earn that a month, and it's still more, it's twice as much as they would receive for the SSI monthly cash benefit alone, okay? So this means the monthly cash benefit does not go to 0 until a person earns $1,673 a month, okay? And guess what? The Medicaid still continues even in the absence of the cash benefit. So they still have Medicaid and they still have more cash on hand, okay? And for 2021, a person can earn up to $47,676, okay? And still receive their Medicaid insurance, okay? So you heard me mention a work incentive early. What is a work incentive, right? So work incentive, they are special rules that SSA has for people with disabilities receiving SSI that makes it possible for them to work and still maintain a monthly cash benefit. And we're going to just discuss this a little briefly of some of the common work incentives, okay? And overall, what it does, it helps expenses for items or services that are directly related to enabling an individual with a disability to remain working. So the impaired related work expense is known as an IRWE, okay? So with an IRWE, the expenses for items or services directly related to helping a person with a disability, it's items that are paid by the person and not by any other source. The benefit of an IRWE is that up to half of the money put aside for the expenses in an IRWE comes back to the person's SSI monthly cash benefit. So what are some of the common things covered in an IRWE? This is just a partial list of the things that qualify as an IRWE. It does include cost of prescription drugs related to the person's disability and the fact that they needed to actually be able to work and stay on the job. It also covers paratransit services, job coaching, durable equipment, and much more. Okay. So we're going to discuss the blind work expense, also known as a BWE. It's very much like an IRWE, but more powerful, and there are many more exclusions that apply. To qualify for a blind work expense, the person must meet the definition of blindness that is defined by the Social Security Administration. Okay. The benefit of a blind work expense is that it allows exclusions off the dollar for dollar rather than half the dollar of like an IRWE. And here are a few of the examples that qualifies for a blind work expense. State and federal taxes, the cost of uniforms, if required for the job, reader services, expenses related to a service for animals care, transportations, consumed meals at work, and many, many more. The list goes on and on related to BWE. Another incentive is known as the student earned income exclusion. So the student earned income exclusion, or the SEIE, is a great work incentive for students who are under the age of 22 who regularly attend school and receive SSI. The SEIE must be requested and approved by the Social Security Administration. Under SEIE, the student can deduct up to $1,930 a month in 2021 until annual gross earnings reach $7,770 for that year. Okay. Therefore, and this is just for 2021, it changes every year. Therefore, the student could get a full SSI check of $794 in 2021 plus earnings for up to 6 months. So they'll receive their SSI check of the $794 plus the amount that they earned as well, okay, from working. So with this exclusion, it can last longer if they deduct less than the $1,930 a month. It just depends on what the deduction is, but they can do up to $7,770 annually. The PASS plan. So a plan to achieve sub-support known as a PASS plan. It is a work incentive that is a bit more complex. A PASS plan does require a detailed plan and a budget that must be approved by the Social Security Administration. With the PASS plan, money is put away to purchase an item or a service to help the person obtain, maintain, or advance in employment. A person does not have to be working to have a PASS plan, okay? But the goal and the documentation must have an employment goal, okay? All past savings must be spent on what has been approved by SSA and purchased within the timeline submitted. If you do want to change or update the past plan, you can do that as well, but it must always be approved with the Social Security Administration. 1619B, what is that, right? 1619B is a program that also allows people to continue to receive Medicaid coverage even after their SSI cash benefit goes to 0 a month due to them earning income and they reach the state threshold of the $47,676 for 2021, okay? And yes, I keep saying, and I'm going to keep repeating, just for 2021, a person can still maintain their Medicaid coverage even earning up to $47,676, okay? If a person earns above that amount, the state threshold, they must have and still must have Medicaid services to continue to work. Or for example, they need personal attendant services. They may be able to get an individualized 1619B threshold based on their earnings. So just to sum this up, SSI and working, remember a person who receives SSI will always have more money in their pocket when they work, okay? So we're gonna take that hat off for a minute and we're gonna go ahead and begin discussing the Title II Social Security Disability Insurance, okay? So you must have a work history to be eligible for SSDI. And you must have either paid into the program through taxes. If you qualify for SSDI, you automatically get Medicare. So you receive SSI, you receive Medicaid as the health insurance program. You receive SSDI, you receive Medicare as the health insurance program. Okay. So how does it work if a person with Title II benefits, how does that work? And they want to get, how is it looked at? So with SSDI, you have stages of work, okay? The impact of working on the SSDI monthly cash benefit, it depends on the stage of work a person is in. Depending on the stage of work, a person either receives the full Title II cash benefit or they receive nothing at all, okay? The stages of work, they do include the trial work period, extended period of eligibility, and the expedited reinstatement. And we're gonna do a very high level overview. We're not going to get too much in the weeds, but just a high level overview so you're kind of aware of these things that take place with the Title II benefits. So what is a trial work period? Okay, so during the trial work period, a person receiving Social Security disability benefits, they may test his or her ability to work and still be considered disabled. Okay, so when you think of this, think of it, okay, we're going to let you try out work. That's what we're going to do. Just think of it in that term. We're going to let you try this out and see how this works. This is known as the trial work period, okay? SSA does not consider work performed during this trial work period as showing that the disability has ended until work has been performed in at least 9 months. This is not necessarily a consecutive 9 months. It's in a rolling 60-month period, okay? In 2021, any person in which their earnings exceed 940 is considered a trial work period. So they're going to give you these 9 months. They could be rolling. They're not consecutive. We're going to let you try this out, and you can earn up to 940 and still be considered disabled, okay? So after that, the trial work period, we have the extended period of eligibility. This is the 36 consecutive month period beginning the first month after you have completed a trial work period. Whether a person works or not, the 36-month extended period of eligibility, it keeps going. So it keeps going until it's ran its 36 months. During the EPE, the person either gets the full Title II cash benefit or they get nothing depending on the amount of earned income. If the person earns above the substantial and gainful employment of the 1,310 for non-blind and 2,190 for blind persons in gross monthly earnings in 2021, there is no cash benefit. If the person earns under the substantial gainful employment of the 1,310 for non-blind and 2,190 for a blind person, they receive the cash benefit. So if you earn above, you don't receive your cash benefit. If you earn under, you do receive it, okay? So you have the trial work period, you have the EPE, and then you have the expedited reinstatement. This is the next stage. So expedited reinstatement allows a person to easily get back on SSDI without filing a new application. And if anyone knows the SSDI, any SSI, the applications are extensive. I mean, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of work. So with the expedited reinstatement, it allows the person to get back on. They don't have to go through the whole process again. If they lose their job or if they start earning above the SGA. While SSA determines whether they can get benefits again, they give the person a provisional benefits for up to 6 months. What this means, the person has 5 years from the month the cash benefit was terminated to use the expedited reinstatement. Okay. Once the expedited reinstatement, then you have the initial reinstatement period. And what this is a 24-month initial reinstatement period between the initial expedited reinstatement and the entitlement month and the attainment of a total of 24 qualifying months. This is, again, not necessarily consecutive, but what makes the individual eligible for a new trial work period. Reinstated benefits are not payable for any month the individual earns above the SGA during the initial reinstatement period. The IRP is completed when the individual has received a total of 24 months of payable benefits. Many people in the initial reinstatement period make above and below the SGA regularly, and they never even accumulate the 24 months of cash benefits. Okay. So what happens to a person's Medicare coverage? Okay. So a person gets Medicare if they receive a Title II cash benefit. Even if a person's cash benefit ends because of earned income, Medicare still continues for at least 7 3/4 years of the end of a completed trial work period. So as you see, as we're walking through these stages, there are stages after stages and safety nets to help people who are trying to get back to work to still kind of have some kind of security in a way. So they still have Medicare coverage, and they still have the cash. They're still able to access their cash benefit if they need it. Okay. So are you confused yet? Perhaps so. So since we're just only giving you a little bit of a taste of the SSI and Title II programs, I'm sure you still have a lot of questions. So we want to provide you with some of the community resources that can possibly help you with receiving SSI or Title II benefits and returning to work. So community work incentive coordinators are commonly known as CWICs. They are highly trained staff who are certified by SSA. They help people understand how working will affect their Social Security benefits and health care. They also recommend work incentive programs as a person may qualify for, and services that are free to any person who receives SSI or Title II and is actively looking for a job or already has a job. I myself am a CWIC, and I can assist with any questions or anything that a person may have regarding these concerns. There's also the SSA Ticket to Work Helpline. This is another great resource provided by SSA. It's information based on SSI and Title II programs and the effects of earnings from work on cash benefits, as well as healthcare coverage. You can call and they will be glad to assist you. There's also PAPS, known as the Protection Advocacy for Beneficiaries of Social Security. This is another great resource. They do help beneficiaries protect their rights and overcome barriers to employment, such as things with problems with employment services, their service provider, housing, transportation, accommodations, as well as overpayments. And you can reach them at the PAPS by calling Disability Rights Texas intake line, and they will be glad to assist you. There's also the HICAP. This is known as the Health Information Counseling Advocacy Programs, which are housed in 28 Texas area agencies on aging. They are both certified counselors and volunteers that provide assistance and advocacy regarding Medicare and Medicaid services. Okay. So SSI in a nutshell, just to sum it up, SSI monthly cash benefit is determined by a formula. A person always has more money if they work under the SSI program Medicaid still continues until earnings reach $47,676 a year or higher, and this is for 2021. Title II in a nutshell, cash works, it works in different stages. Depending on the stage of work, a person receives the entire monthly cash benefit or no benefit at all, and Medicare still continues as long as the person gets a cash benefit, and even longer after that for many, many years.
This unit is completing a vocational assessment and employment profile. This training will address the importance of completing a vocational assessment for people with disabilities who are interested in obtaining competitive integrated employment. The training will also cover completing an employment profile, an often useful companion to a vocational assessment. Before we get started, please make sure you have available the vocational assessment document that was sent out to you last week, along with the PowerPoint slides. Monty sent those out about a week ago, so you should hopefully have that available to review as we go through this material. Okay, why should you complete a voc assessment on a person who wants to enter the job market, very likely for the first time? When evaluating a person's vocational wants and needs, having a tool to guide you through the process can be very helpful. It helps you identify a person's vocational preferences, strengths, and needs, and what the person will need to be successful in achieving their stated vocational goals. It helps identify what supports or services a person will need to be successful and any barriers that will need to be addressed and overcome. So when should you do this? When should you complete the voc assessment? Really, as soon as a person expresses interest in getting a job in the community, completing a vocational assessment is a good idea. You don't want to wait until the next annual or quarterly review. Most organizations that provide employment services will have their own vocational assessment tools, as well as their own timelines for completion. It is important for the service planning team to meet with the individual and discuss interests and options, and to make sure employment in the community is in the person's plan. That must be in their plan, as we said in the last module. The end goal is to identify a person's preferences, strengths, and needs to be successful. So in addition to identifying preferences, strengths, and needs, the vocational assessment helps identify a direction or course of action for helping people achieve their employment goals. It will help you determine if interest and aptitude testing are indicated and guide you through the discovery phase. This may very well be the first conversation the person has had about employment. A vocational assessment is easy to complete and will help the person when first meeting with Texas Workforce Solutions Vocational Rehabilitation Services. It can also be very helpful in developing a resume for someone with limited or no work history. Vocational assessments are available online for free, and there are a lot of them. We have provided you with one today that we think is a good one. It's a very comprehensive tool, and we're going to go through it in some detail in just a moment. There are many areas to consider during the discovery process. What job skills and abilities does the person have? What kind of activities do they enjoy that could potentially lead to a job? What is important to the person? Will this be the person's first job? Or have they had a job in the past? And if so, was that job a good fit? This entire process should be based on the principles of person-centered planning. Person-centered care is a way of thinking and doing things. It allows you to see the person as an equal partner in planning, developing, and monitoring care, and supports and services to meet the person's needs. Notice I said an equal partner. Person-centered planning does not mean you give the person everything they want, but it does involve being considerate of a person's preferences, life circumstances, values, and goals. It involves developing and providing realistic yet appropriate solutions while respecting the person's point of view. For vocational planning, person-centered practices encourage you to respect the person and their equality, to treat the person with dignity, build on their strengths and talents, connect the person to their community to develop relationships, and really take the time to listen to and understand the person. What makes this person special and unique? As I mentioned earlier, one of the most important aspects of the VOC assessment is to identify the barriers the person faces that will prevent achieving the employment vision. Examples to think about are, does the person talk too much? Do they not bathe regularly? Does the person lack the skills to do the job desired? Along with identifying barriers, you want to identify the supports needed to overcome the barriers. And this could include a job coach or developing a positive behavior support plan. Okay, we're going to turn our attention now to the sample vocational assessment instrument provided. You may already have one that you prefer, or you may want to look online for one that you are comfortable with. The sample provided is comprehensive, and it begins with background information, including history, current status and services, preferences, strengths, goals, and barriers. So much of that information can probably be pulled from the individual's records. The next section of the instrument provides a place to summarize the results of the assessments completed during the vocational assessment process. We will briefly explore each of these areas. So looking at communication, it establishes if the person is verbal, prefers sign language, uses sounds or gestures as a means of communicating, or an augmentative communication device. It also evaluates a person's receptive language skills. In other words, how much of what is said does the person understand? And lastly, it explores the person's expressive language skills. In the physical characteristics section, you will list any medical concerns that might affect the person while on the job. Additionally, does the person require adaptive equipment to be successful on the job? How well does the person ambulate? How mobile are they? Are there any visual limitations to be aware of? Hearing impairments. It also looks at a person's physical capacity in terms of fine and gross motor skills. How much endurance, in other words, for how long can the person work? This section evaluates strengths and barriers. How well does the person interact with and relate to others? Does the person seek out social interaction or prefer solitary activities? How well does the person receive constructive criticism? To what type of reinforcement does the person respond favorably? Is adapting to change a problem? How is their physical appearance and grooming? Are there toileting issues? These are all things that are going to be important for an employer when a person begins a job. So these are all things that need to be looked at and considered. So if there are any issues, they can be addressed. Looking at vocational characteristics, does the person arrive at work early, on time, or late? How is attendance? Are they able to stay on task, or are they easily distracted? Are they able to complete tasks independently, or is verbal prompting required? Do they follow instructions well? Can they perform sequential tasks with or without prompting? Do they seek out work materials independently, or do they have to be provided? For how long does the person remain at the workstation? Are errors recognized and efforts made to correct them? Again, these are all things that would be important to an employer. It is important to know if the person follows safety rules and precautions at work. Are there any issues with wearing protective equipment on the job? Is the person able to understand and follow precautions for handling chemicals and cleaning supplies, if that's part of the job that they would be doing? Do they utilize correct techniques for lifting heavy objects? And are there concerns with pedestrian and vehicle safety? All good things to think about. And this is probably one of the more important ones. As I mentioned in the last module, work preferences is a big thing when a person is receiving employment assistance, and you want to be able to help them figure out what kind of job it is that they want to do. So going through some of these work preferences on this list will be very helpful. So the instrument provides a lengthy checklist of things you need to know about the person's preferences. So if the person gets a job, what would be okay and what would not? Examples would include, do they want to work indoors or outdoors? Do they want to do physical labor, clerical work, cleaning, working with food, working on a computer? Is it okay if they do the same thing all day? Do they want to work in an office or a factory? Work alone or with a few or a lot of people? In a quiet or a noisy environment? These are all important considerations when helping the person figure out what kind of work they would like. If the person has a work history, it will be valuable to know about past employment. What jobs were liked or disliked, and what was it about the jobs they liked or did not like. The last assessment section, vocational exploration, takes into consideration any volunteer experiences the person may have had. Have there been any trial work periods, vocational tours? Any other types of exposure to work environments and areas of interest will be valuable information. Okay, so now we have a completed vocational assessment. The service planning team has met, the family and other supports are at the ready, and the necessary documents are all completed. So now we're ready to think about developing an employment profile. A quick cautionary note, before completing an employment profile or a vocational assessment, before the provider can bill for these things, the person must first have been referred to TWS VRS. Because we're thinking back to the previous module, remember, the first thing that we recommended happen, that must happen, as a matter of fact, before somebody can begin receiving employment assistance, is they must be referred either to TWS VRS or the school system. So that then enables the provider to begin billing. So once the referral has been made, and up until the person is accepted for services at TWS VRS and an individual plan for employment is signed, the provider can provide employment assistance, including developing an employment profile or completing a vocational assessment. It's also important to understand that even though we recommend developing an employment profile as a best practice, there is no state requirement to do so. However, we think it's a beneficial and a good idea in smoothing the process of achieving the employment goal. So what is this thing called an employment profile? An employment profile is really a synthesis of the most salient information derived from the discovery process and the vocational assessment. It may contain, for example, a person's hobbies, likes and dislikes, skills, accommodations needed, values and attitudes toward work. It takes all of this information and boils it down to a summary document that emphasizes the most important information. It is a roadmap, if you will, to help the person identify and get the desired job. So discovery activities for the employment profile. So aside from the vocational assessment, the discovery process includes interviewing the person and people who know how the person responds to different environments. It also includes going into the community with the person to visit different businesses to see what jobs look interesting, and discussing employment preferences. This also allows you to observe the person's behaviors and interactions with others. An employment preference may emerge during this time. So, what are the person's dislikes that may be a barrier to success in the work environment? So, and much information can be pulled from the vocational assessment as well. Okay, so these are headings that you would likely see on an employment profile, taking into consideration all of the information you have obtained. What are the person's identified strengths, their needs, their work history, their job interests? Are there vocational training needs to be addressed through employment assistance? Supports or accommodations needed to be successful? Once you are armed with a completed vocational assessment and employment profile, you will be in a position to help the person achieve his or her employment goals and vision. And this concludes this module. We will now move on to module 4.
As supervisors or job seekers, we've all heard that employers are looking for the person that will best fit in with their team. In this particular presentation, information regarding soft skills, which are also referred to as employment readiness skills, determining job preferences, and employment search activities will be reviewed. Soft skills are those skills that enhance an individual's employability. Primarily, they consist of skills that are more intuitive versus hard skills, which are tasks required by a specific type of job. It's important for anyone seeking employment to highlight his or her soft skills when applying for employment. These skills should be reflected in a person's vocational profile, which you just heard about, or their resume, and during the interview. These skills indicate to a potential employer what a person will bring to the job that enhances the overall values of the employer. So today we will be reviewing soft skills and job search activities. We're about to view a video, and in the following video you will see how employment has benefited 3 individuals. In addition, you will also see how the soft skills each of these individuals possess enhances their job performance and benefits the employer. Not only do their soft skills benefit the employer, they also encourage other employees to perform more effectively and promote good customer service. You know, repeat customers are the bread and butter for any business. How employees interact with customers also plays a significant part in developing repeat customers. You'll see in the video how soft skills not only enhance their work performance, but how their coworkers, supervisors, and even the community at large benefit. Give us just a second and we'll queue up this video.
I believe everybody, disabled or not, deserves a chance to make something of themselves. What I'm looking for as an employer is somebody who's motivated to work.
It's really important that people with disabilities are given the chance to work because they are so dedicated and they love their jobs and they love coming to work.
People have a choice of where they're going to spend their money. It could be for price, it could be for location or product, but it's also what the company stands for. So it's really important that businesses hire people that reflect the community.
It is good business to hire people with disabilities because it strengthens and adds diversity to a team.
Clarence is a courtesy clerk here, and he sacks customers' groceries, and then he takes them out to the car.
He just wants to help. He's that giving type person.
I'm a bagger. I sweep the stores and the floors up at Food Town.
He's self-motivated and has a great work ethic. It tends to rub off on other employees as well.
He's worked for our company since 2008. We're very proud and appreciative to have Clarence on our team.
Clarence has exceptional customer service skills. He brings a smile to work every day, and he knows more people by name here than I do.
Cole is a shining example of somebody who loves his job and loves his work.
I like working at Home Depot because I like helping customers.
What's unique about Cole is his zest for wanting to figure out things and offer more and be able to solve problems for both customers and associates.
We have a Home Depot app where you can look up products and locations, and he does not hesitate to assist customers when they come in.
He almost knows the entire store like the back of his hand, so if I have a question, I have no problem going to him and getting the right answer.
There's been a few times that we've been out and I've had Cole with me, and people will come up and they're like, "Is that your son?" They've told me stories of how I was in Home Depot the other day, and he's just such a great worker.
I have good friends at work.
I can't thank Cole enough for being the guy that he is, and the attitude that he brings to the store just makes it enjoyable for everybody.
Customers have a lot going on in their lives and their day, and they come in here to get help for whatever need it may be, and that smile to kind of help them know that we're here to serve and here to take care of them is something that we spend a lot of time training our associates, but with Cole, it's an automatic every time.
He's a great employee, and there's not a lot that I have to do other than just encourage him, fill his tank, and let him know he's doing a great job.
Eric makes a friend out of everybody. Everybody he talks to loves him.
I like everybody.
The first time I met him, he told me, I work all day and I work hard. And that is true. Eric is one of the hardest workers I've ever been around. He does everything with a smile and a positive attitude.
He's very positive. He comes into work very high energy, and that energy transfers to our guests and to our employees.
That's something that warms my heart to see that Eric has found a second home with his co-workers there at Whataburger.
Whataburger is my family.
There are so many people in place from the state level to the local level to make sure that each one of our individuals is supported.
Employers find out it's an advantage to their business because it makes their customers understand they too are compassionate.
After watching Clarence work, I've gone ahead and hired several other people with disabilities and watched them grow with the company as well.
You're gonna get an employee that wants to be there. You're gonna get an employee that's gonna show up on time. You're gonna get an employee that's gonna give you 100% every day that they show up, and they're gonna make a positive impact on your company.
It's incredibly important for any business to reflect their community and give that individual a chance to show what they can really bring to the table.
It's a great opportunity for everyone. No one misses out.
Okay, back with you again. The Department of Labor identifies 6 general categories of soft skills. They're also referred to as employment readiness skills. They are communication, enthusiasm and attitude, teamwork, networking, problem solving and critical thinking, and professionalism. In the following segments, we're going to highlight some of the over 100 possible skills that fall within these 6 categories. If you'd like more information about the types of skills which can be identified in these 6 general categories, please visit the Department of Labor's website, as seen on this slide at the bottom of the page. Communication is the exchange of information between one person to another with successful transmission of ideas and emotions. Communication is verbal and nonverbal. Verbal communication involves the sharing of information face-to-face through telephone, email, social media, or through the use of adaptive communication devices. Nonverbal communication involves body language, subtle ways we respond to what is being communicated. It is important to maintain a neutral stance, gesture appropriately, control facial expressions, and negative reactions. We all engage in interpersonal communication every day. It's not just about what is said, but how it is said and the nonverbal messages read and reacted to, the manner in which we engage with others. The ability to communicate positively with others heightens success in the workplace. Work can be stressful and have a negative impact on interactions with others. Employees, especially new employees, must be able to ask for help and manage their stress while talking with coworkers or supervisors. Knowing when and how to walk away from a situation is the ability to read nonverbal cues. In order to be successful in a work environment, an employee needs to be able to advocate for themselves. This includes politely but confidently speaking up for oneself. Asking for what you need is what we're talking about. If an employee does not speak up, others will not know what's needed. Feedback is another important aspect of communication in the workplace. Everyone needs to know they're doing a good job or may need to try something in a different way. Feedback is important and helps keep all employees motivated. In the video you watched, all of the employees were recognized for their enthusiasm and attitude. How is enthusiasm expressed? Have you ever had a job that you just couldn't wait to get to? The work was enjoyable and rewarding. At the end of the day, you felt you had accomplished something and you contributed to the benefit of others, including your employer. Now that's enthusiasm. An eagerness to get to work and do a good job. Energy to accomplish the task set for the day. An excitement to see how what you are doing benefits others. A commitment to do the best you can do. Motivation to continue to complete job tasks well and to seek to improve as new or different tasks are required. All of these are aspects of enthusiasm. Take a minute to reflect on those showcased in the video. How did each of them respond to going to work and doing the work asked of them? Each of their employers noted that they loved their jobs and were motivated to do a great job. Their enthusiasm for the job was contagious and it transferred to their fellow coworkers. In the video, all of the employees and employers stated attitude was important. Attitude is basically how a person feels about something and how that is expressed through behavior. Winston Churchill once said that attitude is a small thing that can make a big difference. A person who has a positive attitude and mindset will look for the good in others and their workplace. He or she will be willing to try new tasks and not be discouraged by mistake. They are confident, happy, and motivated, and they are willing to help others. A negative attitude is characterized by doubt, anger, and frustration. A person with a negative attitude is hesitant to take on new or different tasks and is discouraged by mistakes, which are viewed as failures. Repeated failures are seen by the person and results in frustration. This can lead to them becoming angry with themselves, which can then be transferred to others. Every person cannot maintain a positive attitude all the time. How a person reacts to and accepts disappointment, mistakes, and criticism reflects the type of attitude they have. Each of the 3 employees in the video are great examples of having a positive attitude about work as well as life in general. Very few of us work solely on our own. Teamwork is basically a group of employees who work together to effectively and efficiently complete assigned tasks. Teamwork builds a shared motivation where employees support one another to achieve the desired outcome. Working in a team allows each employee to learn from more experienced coworkers, and it assists in avoiding mistakes. Cooperation and encouragement also enhance the productivity of teams, their customers, and employers. As you saw in the video, each of the employees did not work alone. They interacted with others, were supportive, helpful, and cooperative in meeting customers' needs. The CEO of LinkedIn recently stated in an interview that the most significant obstacle to employment today is what he referred to as a networking gap. According to LinkedIn's social impact, the network gap is the advantage some individuals have over others as a result of who they know. Where you grow up, where you go to school, and where you work can give you up to a 12 times advantage in gaining access to opportunity. Historically, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities have had limited to no opportunities for competitive employment. Most who have been employed outside a sheltered workshop have had family, friends, or neighbors who would offer employment opportunities. In today's environment, and through Texas's focus on the Employment First initiative, employers are recognizing the benefits of a diverse workforce. As a result, networking opportunities through family, friends, and neighbors now includes former coworkers, others with similar interests or hobbies, job fairs, apprenticeship opportunities, and assistance through the Texas Workforce Commission. With the shift in attitudes and increased opportunities, networking is by far the hardest of the soft skills to overcome. As employers continue to expand the diversity of their workforce and persons are engaged in competitive employment, networking opportunities will increase. Problem solving is the process of finding solutions to issues a person or a team is tasked to address. Problem solving skills are a person's ability to identify an issue quickly and develop a timely, effective solution. A person with problem-solving skills tends to be confident and resourceful. This is an essential skill employers seek in job applicants. Back to the video, the coworkers mentioned that when they had a problem or needed help, Cole knew how to help solve the problem. He learned where things were in the store. He could direct others to the right location or help them find it. He knew how to use the handheld device to search for items. He was able to identify the problem, select the best alternative, or think of other alternatives. He knew how to critically think through issues brought to him. He knew who needed help, what was needed, when it was needed, and where to find it. Professionalism includes models of behavior that ensures customer interactions are positive. Employee interactions are constructive and supports the employer. Professionalism can be broken down to 3 categories: appearance, responsibility, and work ethic. Appropriate attire and proper hygiene and grooming are the first impression that employers, coworkers, and customers have of the employee. Presenting oneself in this manner says to those encountered that you care about yourself and the way others will perceive you. In the video, all 3 employees were complimented on their professionalism. all presented themselves with a clean, neat, well-groomed appearance. They were appropriate in their interactions with supervisors, coworkers, and customers. This was reflected while at work, but also noted by customers when outside of work. How a person presents themselves does carry over to other aspects of life. When an employee shows responsibility and is accountable for their actions, they develop the trust and respect of their coworkers and supervisors. It demonstrates they are not only doing their job, but investing in their work and the values expected by their employers. The employees featured in the video demonstrated responsible work behavior. They were reliable, they were at work on time, were invested in their job, and wanted to do well. They were self-disciplined, conscientious, and resourceful, all of which are examples of being responsible for a job well done. Throughout our careers, a strong work ethic is a characteristic that embodies how we approach our work and how that approach impacts those we come into contact with. The customers, the coworkers, and employers that we come into contact with. What are concrete examples of a good work ethic? Many employers have identified the following as examples they look for when judging the work ethic of their employees. First, being responsible and accountable. Next, having integrity, having discipline, being honest, being respectful. As seen in the video, each of the employees displayed the characteristics of someone with a strong work ethic. Their supervisors and coworkers recognized their willingness to work, motivation to work, being on time for work, loyalty to their employer, and willingness to assist customers. They exemplified the values of the companies and had a positive effect on their employers and the company's reputation in the community. In the previous slides, soft skills and their characteristics have been reviewed. In the next portion of this presentation, information regarding an individual's ability to learn these skills will be reviewed. Where and how these skills can be acquired will be addressed. So let's start with home life. We all have some of the characteristics of the soft skills we just reviewed. There are some that we and others may need to improve, and others we don't have, but we can learn. These skills can be taught through everyday life. At home, individuals can be taught the importance of time management, such as getting up on time, being on time. Appearance, which is bathing, grooming, dressing appropriately. Cooperation, dealing with getting along with others, sharing chores, and problem solving, which could focus on identifying the problem, thinking and talking about alternatives, and trying different alternatives. If being taught in the home and other settings such as rehabilitation site, there are curricula available to purchase and some which are free. Other mechanisms are role-playing, observations during outings, and visiting and talking with potential employers. Here are a few other opportunities to learn soft and hard skills. Those could be volunteering, job shadowing, which is observing an employee in a work environment, apprenticeships, which are hands-on, content-specific work, and others, which are displayed on this slide. You can go back and review this later if you saved the presentation, but this slide is an example of soft skills training that can be done in many environments, including the home and day hab. So again, reference the slide later if you'd like to use this type of activity. We all have things we love, such as being outdoors, hiking, fishing, the mountains, wildlife. This doesn't mean we are all skilled to be a park ranger. Individuals will need to be guided in linking their soft skills into other areas or preference. Excuse me. Being able to identify our own soft skills is important in helping others identify theirs. Each of the three people in the video were pleasant, eager, self-motivated, had positive attitudes, wanted to work and do a good job. How can these skills help in identifying possible job options for them? If a person has a pleasant demeanor and a positive attitude, customer service types of employment may be suited for them. If a person is attentive to detail, inventory and stocking may fit for them. These are just a couple of examples of matching soft skills with potential job preferences. Where do we most often look for jobs? The most common that come to mind are online job sites such as LinkedIn or Monster. So how do you assist those who you serve looking for jobs? Some suggestions are employer websites, online job sites, ads, word of mouth, leads from networking activity, newspapers, and others. It's important to be familiar with job sites and assist others in utilizing these skills. This slide gives you a simple resume sample. Briefly review the various components of the resume. Refer to the employment profile, again, discussed in Module 3. It'll be a great asset for you. There are many formats available online. This particular format is for someone who has little or no work experience. Many of the individuals you are assisting may not have any work experience or no paid work experience. Regardless, a resume can be developed that will interest prospective employers. Again, Module 3, you were introduced to the vocational profiles. These profiles will be invaluable in helping to build a positive resume. As with anyone, there are certain things applicants should do in order to draw attention to their application. Show definite interest in the position and their appreciation for the time the employer took to talk with them. Courtesy in the application process is imperative to make a good and lasting impression. Submitting online applications, this requires follow-up, watching for emails for feedback, and other forms of response from the employer. Maybe you can mail cover letters with resumes to potential employers is important. Follow up with potential employers by phone or email, and thank you notes to potential employers. Make it personal. Use the HR person or hiring authority's name if possible. Sample job applications can be found online. You will find electronic and hard copy examples. Now, interviewing for jobs. Each of the following will help prepare a person for a job interview. It is important to present a good first impression. Looking your best, knowing how to greet an interviewer, and being prepared are essentials in job interviews. Employers gauge interest by how we present ourselves and whether we will take time to follow up. Interviews can be frightening. For those who have limited or no experience being interviewed, practice is essential in preparing for the interview and landing the job. Learning how to prepare for the interview is an important soft skill. Things such as what to wear, what to take to the interview, how to greet the potential employer, and how to thank the potential employer for their time are all important. Who should the individual practice for the interview with? They could practice with a job coach, practice with a case manager, residential staff, family, friends, and/or even practice with someone they don't know. The fact is, the more practice, the more at ease they will be when they go to the real interview. Knowing what you can bring to the job is important. Part of this knowing is being aware of your strengths and weaknesses. Being honest is also important. Employers are not just interested in your hard skills, which are those skills required to complete a job task, but they are also interested in how you will fit in, what you will bring to the company, and how your strengths will benefit the overall values of the organization. Here are some common interview questions that can be used in practice with those you are assisting. First, tell me about yourself. Why should we hire you? What is your greatest strength? What is your greatest weakness? Why do you want to leave, or have you left, your current job? What are your salary expectations? How do you handle stress and pressure? And a common question that is asked is simply, why do you want this job? It's been said, hard skills will get you an interview, but soft skills will get you the job. How those we serve interact with others at home, in the community, and at the workplace is vital to a successful transition to competitive integrated employment.
All righty, hope everybody's back. We'll go ahead and move into the job coaching and technology session. This module will cover the subject of job coaching and also the use of technology with job coaching. This presentation includes what and who is a job coach, the challenges and barriers job coaches face frequently, the essential qualities and practical skills needed to be an effective job coach, resources for job coaches for anyone interested in the field of job coaching, the use of technology in the daily life of a job coach and their employee trainee, discussion of a current pilot in the use of technology and job coaching administered by the Texas Health and Human Services and funded by the Money Follows the Person federal grant. Who is a job coach? They are a specialist who provides training that is specific to the job their employee is to learn. They provide structured intervention strategies, which may include functional, community-based assessments to determine the job seeker's skills, interests, learning styles, social skills, and support needs. This information helps customize desirable and suitable work options. Job coaches should be familiar with how to design a task analysis and use it to collect data related to productivity. Fading of job coach support should begin soon after the job coach sets foot in the business, even if this fading is only for moments at first. Being one of the group at work is important for success and long-term employment. A job coach teaches good interpersonal skills. A focus on the following topics may be considered: understanding the feelings of others, cooperating with others, keeping a good attitude, showing respect, appropriate contact, active listening, and relationships. Job coaches provide various other related assessments, job development, counseling, advocacy, travel training, and other services needed to maintain the employment of their employee in training. Let's talk about some of the challenges and barriers. These challenges and barriers are faced by the job coach and the employee in training. Communities and employers' support are essential for successful employment for an employee with a disability. Infrastructures within the community should be in place, such as public transportation. Employers who are willing to take that first step require education from those such as job coaches in the act of hiring someone with disabilities. Understanding others is essential. In this case, those with intellectual disabilities requires coworkers who treat their disabled counterparts like they treat everyone else. Having the necessary and appropriate assessments, data forms, and task analysis, to name a few of the tools required, are essential. Often, an employee's ability to learn a job may conflict with the allowed amount of time an employer is willing to give. This requires a job coach who can work well under pressure and is flexible. The public can sometimes have an adverse reaction to someone with disabilities in the workforce. Job coaches must prepare their trainees for these reactions. Families often are reluctant to have their family member with a disability enter the workforce. This reluctance and lack of support have several rationales that must be overcome to ensure success. Topics such as, will they lose their benefits? They will be injured on the job. They will fail. They will not fit in, are all concerns from families that a job coach faces. Job coaches often work with employees who exhibit unusual behaviors that may present a challenge in the workplace. These behaviors may require understanding and attention from the job coach, who can help the employee to overcome these personal obstacles to success. Many employees the job coach will train have very limited work experience regardless of their age. This requires the job coach to not only assist the employee in learning their new job, but to educate the coworkers in understanding the employee and their limited knowledge of the workplace. Getting to and from the job can be a real challenge for the worker with disabilities. This job coach will need to ensure that the employee has a reliable and timely transportation. A job coach must have excellent communication skills, understanding how the employer desires a job to be performed, and transfer these instructions to the employee are often difficult. An unmotivated employee sometimes means a lack of interest. The job coach must educate and motivate the employee in understanding the importance of the job and the other aspects of having a positive attitude in the workplace. Of course, there is always the possibility that the current job is not a good match for the employee and other occupations may need consideration. A job coach will need to be alert to environmental challenges and barriers in the workplace that may negatively affect the employee's ability to complete their job satisfactorily. Accommodation recommendations may be appropriate for the job coach in some situations. The ability to understand employers, families, other staff members, and the employee are key to a job coach's skill for ensuring successful employment. Often a job coach may be required to teach a specific job method to an employee who has already performed similar duties from a former employer. This ability to retrain someone is critical in satisfying the desires of the new employer. Having a disability adds to the complexity of navigating the competitive integrated job market. In a suppressed job market, this act of getting a job is even more difficult. In this case, being competitive means having the required skills. A good job coach can make the difference by teaching those skills necessary to be competitive. A job coach in discussions with potential employers can educate hiring authorities in understanding the value of hiring those with disabilities. These values include dependability, long-term stability, and loyalty, to name a few of the common characteristics found among this workforce. These are essential qualities and practical skills needed to be effective as a job coach. An effective job coach is someone who listens to employers, to the person they are coaching, to instructions and questions, and then provide the specific coaching needed to complete the job successfully. They offer support to the employer, to the person they are coaching, to reinforce both parties and provide resource when needed. They are someone who provides guidance to the employer on important aspects of the employee, to the family regarding job topics that will need family involvement and input, and to the employee in understanding the essential topics of their new workplace. To be an effective job coach for someone with disabilities requires a passion to help others, including the employee, their families, and the employer and other stakeholders. They provide empowerment for the employee, which is essential in developing an independent employee who can be employed without the assistance of others. They are someone who problem solves multiple times daily and requires decisions that are not biased toward the employer or employee. They have good communication skills to navigate the workplace with the employer, the employee, and other stakeholders. These good communication skills enhance the other skills necessary to be an effective job coach. They provide advocacy for the employee who often does not advocate for themselves effectively. They can take rejections from employers, families, employees, and others and understand that these are to be expected and are just part of the job. It is critical at times for the job coach to make timely interventions within the workplace to avoid problems in the future. They have the ability to communicate effectively with good writing skills and understand these are essential skills for a job coach. A job coach will need to understand and identify the various learning styles of their employees. This ability will increase the likelihood of success for those they are teaching. To be successful in today's workplace requires effective networking. A job coach will need to teach networking, have networking knowledge to their employee to ensure success. Job coaches should teach time management skills to their employees and practice these skills daily themselves. Good time management skills increase productivity and efficiency. An employee in training with a job coach is very dependent on that person in the beginning of learning their new job. The job coach's ability to be dependable is critical to the success of the employee in training. Employees with disabilities who require job coaches also require other support staff. A successful job coach must be able to work with all the other entities involved in the employee's life. This involvement requires good teamwork. These are excellent resources for those who are either job coaches or have interest in this field. Please feel free to print this slide from the PowerPoint provided in your invite as a resource. And I'll leave it up just for a moment. Excuse me. Becoming competent and effective in new environments with different people is a real challenge for all of us. Having an intellectual disability and possibly mental health challenges also often makes this even more challenging. Technological advances have made substantial impact on improving the lives and well-being of persons served in the human services sector. These advances have not only improved communications, but also have led to increased independence with personal care, transportation, and vocational needs. Using smart technology will increase the individual's control of their environment, thus helping in a successful transition in all settings, including the workplace. Smartphones, we're all carrying one today. Tablets such as iPads and many others are all available. Apps are abundant and many are free. Mobile apps address a multitude of topics today. There are many apps that can assist a job coach in their daily teaching of job skills with an employee. We're all using technology increasingly in our daily lives. We have all experienced the effects of COVID in the workplace in the last couple of years. This event only increased the use of technology for all of us. Technology such as telemedicine, touchless transactions, video and telemeetings, to name just a few. The use of technology to teach someone a job is a tool we all should consider and use if needed. To look more specifically at the aspect of using technology in job coaching, we can talk about a pilot that is being administered by the Texas Health and Human Services. This pilot is to be hosted in 5 sites in Texas, both urban and rural. This pilot will have up to 60 participants divided between 5 local intellectual and developmental disability authorities, or LIDAs. The focus of this pilot will be to use smart devices and apps to assist job coaches in teaching job skills and other needs that will build independence. The pilot will include the use of apps currently available, some free, some at a cost, along with video to provide individuals with interactive technology that lessens their dependency on assistance and intervention from others. We are using iPads for this specific pilot, although after the pilot, it is hoped that if a participant has their own smart device, such as a phone, they can then download the apps for their own use with the job coach. The apps that are selected will allow a job coach to gradually fade their physical presence and eventually interact with the employee while off-site. This fading of the job coach's physical presence will give the employee more independence in work settings and remove the stigma associated with having a job coach shadow them at all times. The job coach may continue to provide remote support to the individual based on their needs. Apps that are specific to the person's needs will be downloaded onto the iPad for both the employee and the job coach. The app software selected will improve an individual's success in any new environment, with emphasis during this project being the vocational setting. The technology will support an individual in the transition of entering a new or different workplace. Individuals will be able to preview and become familiar with work settings, including coworkers, job responsibilities, job expectations, the physical site, and more prior to their actual physical arrival. This act of previewing the new environment as often as desired will ease transition anxiety. The types of apps to be used will vary depending on the needs of the employee. Let's take a brief look at a few of the various types. There are many apps that allow communicating from afar, such as texting, Messenger, emailing, FaceTime, Skype. All of these apps will allow a job coach to interact with the individual while off-site. Apps that utilize photos and albums to express preferences, goals, desires, and the needs without verbal and written expression. Through the use of video, individuals will be able to preview and become familiar with work settings, including coworkers, job responsibilities, job expectations, physical environment, and their new workstation, all prior to their actual physical arrival. Apps that focus on the use of scheduling, alarms, and checklists will allow the job coach and participant to organize their day, including personal and work, to improve their performance. Alarms will help to keep a person on time with their day, such as awakening, arriving to work, breaks, lunches, outside of work appointments, and more. Checklists created as needed will assist a participant in performing the needed tasks to complete their job. Apps such as Visual Planner, Wunderlist, video scheduler, vocational timer, visual timer, and more will be offered. Task queuing apps will assist a participant in the skill area of staying on their assigned job task, moving from one task to the next, and completing their task. Apps such as Visual Cue, First Then Visual Scheduler, ChoiceWorks, and more will be offered. Sequencing apps will assist a participant in performing their assigned work task in the order needed to correctly finish. Apps such as Can Work and others are to be explored and offered. Video modeling will be explored to teach participants the correct method of a task by watching someone who is proficient in the task on video. These videos will be downloaded onto the iPad and available to watch as often as a participant needs to correctly mimic and complete the assigned task. Relaxation and centering apps will assist participants to maintain their focus, to relax, to recenter themselves when perceived stressors may disrupt their productivity and workday. Apps such as Bloom, Color Dots, Pocket Pond, and others will be considered. The apps that I have mentioned during this presentation are all available, although new apps are coming out every day. I'm sure there are new apps that are now available since this presentation was put together. So the world of apps grows and grows, which only is there to help. To ensure the validity of this pilot and support future requests for sustainability, several measures will be put in place to gather measurable data. All participants, and if needed, assisted by a job coach, will take a pre-project survey. At the end of the project, all participants will take a post-project survey. Job coaches also will participate in the pre and post surveys to provide insight from their perspective on the project. Feedback from the survey will determine if participants benefited from the use of tablets and apps in the workplace. To gain more specific information in the determination of the project validity, a daily data sheet will be used for each participant. This data will be entered onto a weekly data form and then onto a project spreadsheet. The data from the method will display progress or not for each participant and the group as a whole. This taking of daily data will also assist job coaches in areas the employee may need additional support. This data will be used to provide proof of concept and intent to provide reason for sustainability. We are all using technology increasingly in our daily lives. The use of these tools in the workplace to teach job skills only increases the likelihood of success for the job coach and their trainee. With successfully trained employees, a job coach's job is done, and the people they serve will live a life with increased independence. Thank you for taking the time on this presentation. We are going to move on in a moment without a break, so stand by.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the last module of the day. We're going to be talking about employer relationships. And so in this module, we're going to go over the importance of creating and maintaining a strong relationship with a potential employer. We'll also go over the techniques used to market to employers and why it's a great decision to hire folks with disabilities. Finally, we'll talk about keeping those relationships with the employer strong even after the person is hired. I often compare this section to being a talent agent to a movie actor or a musician, and I'll explain why as we go along. So, as providers, we've often experienced the challenge of communicating with an employer. It's not always easy to convey to them why they should hire someone with a disability. Our job is to build those relationships with businesses, and part of that is factoring in the needs of the business. We do this by communicating to them how the individual you are helping will meet those needs and help their operation. Again, much like a talent agent looks for the best movie or music venues for a talent they are representing. And there is a ton of talent in the individuals that we serve. If we're successful in establishing and maintaining this relationship and continue to provide the supports needed for the individual, we can open the door for possibilities, including the employer's interest in hiring more people with disabilities in the future. So, it's important to consider yourself as serving two customers. There goes that talent agent philosophy again. Naturally, you're serving the individual who is seeking employment. That is, of course, our goal, to help them find employment, and through that, find their own independence. But to meet that goal, it's equally important to consider the employer as our customer. By factoring in their needs, we can make sure that the job seeker is a good fit, but will also have the opportunity to succeed. I like to compare it to, say, Sylvester Stallone might be great in the Rocky movies or in a movie requiring some muscle-bound hero, but he probably wouldn't take the lead on a romance. Our job would then be to research movies that would fit Stallone's strength. And we do this by speaking to the film studio and determining what they need for their film. Of course, that doesn't mean that Mr. Stallone could never work in a romantic comedy, but it would be our job to prepare him for a role that might be out of his comfort zone. I'd like to see that movie, by the way. So, by focusing on the needs of both the business and the individual, you ensure the success of your talent by researching the best opportunities for them. Let's go over a few of the things we can do when we first contact the employer. So let's all face it, 2020 changed everything, especially the way we interact with one another. We were already used to texting and FaceTiming, but 2020 made it the norm for everyone. We're doing it right now. And while it's become somewhat of a norm to conduct meetings on Zoom, in-person communication has been the most effective method when working with an employer. Body language, a smile, an understanding nod, these subtle things go a long way to conveying sincerity in your intentions, both for the individual you serve, but also for the employer. Let's talk about using the phone to talk to an employer. Simply put, it's not the most effective means to communication. Why it's a great idea to hire someone with a disability. It's a little impersonal. But we can still use the initial phone call to make an appointment and determine who makes the hiring decisions in a company. Once we figure that out, we can move forward with an in-person meeting. Virtual works too if the employer is just not ready for in-person, but it's important for both parties to be able to see each other. So aim for that in-person if possible, but be mindful of the employee's concern with safety and don't pester them too much if their wish is to start with a virtual meeting. So we've all been on those service calls with the cable company where we think we're talking to the right person. They listen to your entire story about how your internet isn't working. They assure you that everything's going to be all right, and then they put you on hold and pass you on to another service rep where you have to start the entire narrative all over, thus wasting 20 minutes of your time, 30 if you factor in hold time. To avoid a somewhat similar situation, it's important to know who you'll be speaking with and to know ahead of time who the hiring authority is for the business. Are those decisions being made by human resources, a diversity coordinator, department manager, supervisor, the owner's dog, or even the business owner themselves? Like the example with the cable company, knowing who you need to talk to can save you time, and in a lot of cases saves you from having to repeat the pitch to multiple people. It also helps to know about the business itself. For example, are they in the marketing arena, sales, or is it a department store? Who is the basic customer and what is their profile? Knowing that it's a manufacturing entity, for example, will help you determine the various types of employment opportunities available based on their product. Another tool is presenting at a local civic organization. This makes for a great opportunity because business reps attend these meetings and you'll get a chance for one-on-one discussion following your presentation. This can open possible future visits with the employer, or this can open possibilities for future visits with the employer. Finally, another opportunity you can explore is attending job fairs in your local community. This might be a great chance to set up a booth and let businesses know about the individuals you serve. But even if you don't set up a booth, you can attend job fairs along with the individuals to scout potential employers that you can later contact. Going back to that comparison I made to the talent agent, one thing to keep in mind that as much as you are here to serve the person seeking employment, you are also entering into a partnership with the employer. A partnership will build a bond with the employer so that they know that you are trying to help them. One way to do this is to ask questions that pertain to their business needs. What types of positions are they trying to fill? What skill sets are needed for those positions? When the employer answers these questions, it's important to be a good listener so that you can determine what they will expect out of someone they hire. Remember, a business makes decisions based on what's good for the business. As much as we want to successfully place an individual in an employment position, the business is deciding based on their bottom line. Again, Stallone in the romantic comedy. But we can adjust our services based on what we see the business needs. This constant balancing act of knowing who your candidates are and how you can match their skills to a given business and their needs is at the core of this. When you first meet an employer, they will fall into one of three categories. It's a good idea to know which category they fall into before you meeting with them. This is where that advanced research helps. Figuring out where they fall in the category will help guide your message and how you deliver it. So the three categories are the choir, inclusive, or the uninitiated. Let's go over them. The choir category comes from the old saying, you're preaching to the choir. Like for you San Antonio folks, someone trying to convince me to go to Mi Tierra, they don't have to convince me. They're preaching to the choir. I'd go there every time. So obviously, this employer is very engaged and is highly supportive of hiring people with disabilities. It's also likely that they are open to hiring more people with disabilities. If an employer falls into this category, they're already meeting you halfway and understand the benefits. This is the category we want to strive for as we work with each employer. The inclusive employer has a workplace that may have taken steps towards inclusivity, but they still have some work to do to become one that fully embraces employment of people with disabilities. They may not be fully engaged on recognizing the value that a disabled person can bring to the workplace, but they also present a great opportunity to encourage them to take that next step into that choir category. Finally, we move into the most challenging category, the uninitiated. Challenging because the employer has no prior experience or even plans to hire a person with disabilities. Now, while this category will be your greatest challenge, keep in mind that if you were able to set up a meeting with them, they're at least willing to listen. So it's up to you to explain the value of hiring a person with disabilities using your prior experience and testimonials with other businesses. While it's great to present to them with all the positives, it's always better to hear it from another business owner with great experience. The uninitiated may be the most challenging, but it's also a new opportunity. And again, if they're meeting with you, they're at least curious. It also helps to stress to this employer that they would not be taking on an employee without support tools. It helps to mention that you will offer coaching to save on training costs, as well as the commitment that the individual will bring to the job. It's also important to know why companies hire individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. According to a national survey from the Institute for Corporate Productivity, 70% of businesses surveyed would indicate that it contributes to the company's culture. 64% surveyed indicated that it contributes to the company's diversity and inclusion plan. 62% of the companies simply state it's the right thing to do. 57% indicate that the available positions support good talent. 50% surveyed indicate that it contributes to the company's strategy and social responsibility. 40% indicate that the internal advocacy from employees with involvement in the IDD community contributed to their decisions to hire individuals with IDD. Continuing more, internal advocacy from employees with involvement in the IDD community represented 47%. It's important to note that incentives or requirements are not the driving factor. And truly, we wouldn't want them to be, because we want the individual to feel that they are working in a place where they're wanted for their talent and not to meet some kind of requirement. What this tells us is that businesses hire people with IDD or other disabilities because they make for good employees and assist the organization in being an overall well-rounded entity. Recognizing these reasons will help you as you network. Most of us have been to a car dealership where an employee works on commission. It's a noble job, but we all dread the approach. It may start with a friendly hello, but the pitch is followed soon after, and you're often felt pressured to listen. The language we use when speaking to an employer also carries similar weight. It's the difference between hearing someone say, "How can I help you?" and "Have I got a deal for you?" The first example puts you in a listening position and one where you're waiting to hear the needs of the business. The second example comes from a salesman angle, where your needs and the needs of the individual take priority. The balance here comes from listening because it's up to you to process the information and determine how your candidate best fits. So, why is it a good business decision to hire a person with a disability? Outside of the choir category that we mentioned earlier, some employers will have questions and concerns, some of which may be based on myths. You are in a position to dispel such myths and help the employer by introducing them to some of the good business reasons listed here. They will be listening for examples that will be good for the business, and that's why the following are focused on those needs. First of all, individuals with disabilities have proven to be solid and reliable staff. They don't call in sick to work. And actually, if there's been a challenge regarding attendance or being on time, employers have mentioned that some employees want to come to work, so they may show up on days when they shouldn't. Some employers may think that an individual with a disability will have more injuries on the job. That's simply just not true. It's actually quite the opposite because individuals with a disability are more cautious. Another reason it's a good decision to hire someone with a disability is that they demonstrate great desire to work. For the individuals we serve, work is a chosen goal, and because of that, they often set the benchmark that others can follow. This is due to their drive and wanting to prove themselves. Further, individuals with disabilities can be an incredible solution for employers who experience high turnover rate, especially in entry-level positions. So when researching a business or meeting with the employer, it's useful to figure out what positions have high turnover, and at the same time determine if you have someone who's a great fit for that position. People with disabilities are out-of-the-box thinkers. What does that mean? Well, how many of us get up each and every day, rapidly jump out of bed, get dressed, head out to work, and go about our day? And if we have kids, we get them ready for school and out the door as well. Well, for a person with disabilities, their first challenge of the day can start right when they wake up. Simply getting out of bed can be a significant challenge depending on the degree of the disability. Because of that, individuals with disabilities become innovators in life and out-of-the-box thinkers. They take that innovation and transfer it to the job site where they become problem solvers and set trends for the employees. So I'm friends with Susie from the earlier video. And as you noticed in the video, she used a keyboard that allows her to type with her nose. She also composes some of the most eloquent emails I've ever known. She's not slowed by her disability and has a solution for any challenge thrown her way. She even demonstrated to us while we were there capturing the interview. She showed us how she gets in and out of her wheelchair without assistance. If her problem solving factors into the things that most of us take for granted, imagine the types of workplace challenges that she solves with her team. Individuals with disabilities are also on time and have excellent overall attendance. How many employers would love for us and for their staff to be on time? In fact, employers have stated repeatedly, my only challenge with Juliet is that she comes into work too early. And in the case of Eric, also from the video we watched, his manager said that sometimes Eric will show up much earlier to his shift, ready and eager to work. I think some of the video even shows him like getting there a little earlier. And I know my boss would love for me to show up an hour or two earlier. Finally, it's a great business decision because it could be an excellent tool in helping the company achieve its diversity goal. This can also be positive image for the company because customers recognize that the business truly hires people who represent all of the community. We've been using the term employer throughout this entire presentation, which makes sense because historically we use the term to describe where someone we serve might work. But it is important to recognize the difference between an employer and a business. A business is created to produce or sell a product, or maybe support a product, for example. And while you can't have a business without employees, the business was not initially created with the purpose of becoming an employer. I have a few friends, for example, who started their own business, but they are the only employee. But as that business grows, it can create the opportunity for employment. So why am I telling you this? Something you already know. When we use the term business, we focus on the needs of the business. Recognizing that a business exists for a specific purpose and not just for hiring people will assist us in understanding their needs better. The other verses we will discuss is the difference between business development and job placement. When helping an individual find employment, a business development approach shifts the focus from both customers, the individual and the business. Historically, we've used the term job placement, which focuses solely on developing a job for an individual. But when we think of the employer as a business, we factor in their needs and determine the talent requirement for the individual we serve. The next verses we'll discuss is qualified versus job ready. It's almost a given that anyone who wants to work is job ready. I mean, if there's a computer programming job out there that pays a couple of $100,000 a year, I can absolutely consider myself ready for that job. I'll fill out the hiring paperwork and everything. The thing is, I'm not actually qualified to be a computer programmer. I can barely get my Alexa at home to tell me the weather without getting into a very one-sided argument with her. So while I may be job ready for that programming position, I'm not actually qualified for it. So I wouldn't be much of a benefit to that business and its needs. When we present an individual for a position within a business, it's important to emphasize the qualifications of the person versus just the fact that they are job ready. This, once again, shifts the focus to the needs of the business while still benefiting the person you serve, because you are finding them a job that they're actually qualified for. Next is productivity versus accommodation. When faced with the word accommodation, a business representative will immediately think of the costs that they'll have to incur when hiring a person with disabilities. The way we can flip that narrative so it focuses on the way we can flip that narrative is to focus on productivity enhancements for the business and how that can meet their goals. When we look at the numbers from earlier and the reasons why a business hires a person with disability, turning an accommodation into productivity becomes a positive for the business because it contributes to their company's culture and inclusivity. Speaking of inclusivity, many businesses strive to be inclusive and recognize diversity. When we're talking about inclusion, it goes hand in hand with diversity. And inclusive workplaces provide equal opportunities to all employees. Being inclusive reflects well on the image of the company, so this is a subject that you can discuss with the business. Some businesses even have departments that focus primarily on diversity and inclusion. Knowing this in advance can assist you in targeting your message to the right person in the organization. Now that you started building the relationship with the employer, you can become a reliable and trusted connection for the business. They now know that you understand their needs, so you don't have to wait to hear about the new job opportunities. The established trust will open up the opportunity to reach out in the best interest of the employer and the candidate. So, the individual has a job. Great news for everyone. What's next? It's important for the employer to understand and agree with the subject of a job coach. We know what a job coach is, but do they? Will they be comfortable with one of your staff being on the site training the individual? Or will they be comfortable with the amount of time the job coach is needed? These are important discussions that you should have with the employer. Once you've established the job coaching details, it's important that the job coach is available at the agreed upon times. Frankly, it can ruin the relationship with an employer if we don't provide the level of job coaching support that the individual needs. We've seen this happen many times, and it's very frustrating for the employer when the support isn't available like agreed. One of the worst things we can do is create a situation for failure. It can ruin the traction gained by the individual we serve and demolish a relationship with the employer. We also need to commit to establishing follow-up visits with the employer, at a minimum monthly. These visits are great opportunities to discuss progress, job coaching needs, and even further opportunities for the individual. These visits are important, even if the individual has been working independently after a period. It's always important to maintain that relationship with the employer and seek feedback. It's also important that the employment specialist or job coach remains available and rapidly responds, should the individual need support on the job. One way to do this is by making sure that your contact at the business knows how to quickly get a hold of the right person in your organization. It's very important that you maintain communication with the employer, especially before you start removing the job coach from the employment site. It's equally essential that you maintain communications with the employer, even if family members of the individual have their own working relationship with the employer. In fact, you need to be aware of that and always let the employer know that you will remain in contact for all support needs. You are the official point of contact between the employer, the individual because you serve both customers, like that agent. So let's review. View the business as a customer. You have two customers, the individual you serve and the business who may employ them. Listen, listen, listen. Listen to the needs of the business and how you can offer a solid employee solution for their needs. Understand that a business makes decisions based on their needs. They are not making decisions based on rehabilitation needs. Your ability to help them meet those needs will build that very important relationship. Be flexible and nimble so that you can adjust your messaging to meet the needs of the business. Make sure to maintain communication even after an individual is determined to be independent on the job. This constant communication can prevent unexpected challenges and help you maintain your relationship with the employer, which may present future opportunities for other individuals.
Thank you for attending Employment First and Employment Services training. This training was made possible with funding from a Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services Money Follows the Person grant. If you have any questions resulting from this training, or if you need additional explanation on any topic presented during this training, you may email us at se.questions@hhsc.state.tx.us. Again, that is se.questions@hhsc.state.tx.us. Again, thank you for attending Employment First and Employment Services training.